All this is Dr. Mobeen Sayed from drbeen.com. Welcome to one more show. So this is our chit chat. Let's start with the questions. DDS says to the truly cool beans. Yes, some are not very cool. To the truly cool beans, love and appreciate you all. To the newbies who want to fight, you win. This chat will not be moderated. Good night. Okay, so DDS is not going to moderate. Okay, let's start. Tell me your questions. Don says, do you think the mRNA will reverse transcribe into DNA like it showed in the study in vitro? It is possible, but there is no further route for it. The reason we have the adenovirus based vaccine. The adenovirus based vaccine actually contains the DNA. So we've already reverse transcribed the RNA, mRNA for the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein. We converted it into a DNA and then attached it to the adenovirus DNA. And then adenovirus actually enters the cell, goes all the way to a nuclear pore, attaches there. Actually, it doesn't go all the way by itself. It is pulled by our proteins, brought it over there. Meanwhile, they're shredding it as well. So broken pieces of adenovirus are brought and attached to the nuclear pore where the DNA enters the nucleus. So the Johnson and Johnson and Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines are actually DNA pieces that go in the nucleus. And then they make mRNA there, which makes vaccine, and then those DNA pieces are removed. So even if it is reverse transcribed, it will be then removed. Okay, so next. Lime ADE says, do we know how long the spikes stay in the system and where they concentrate the most? How long the spikes stay in the system and where do they concentrate the most? These biodynamic study from Pfizer was about the LNP parts, not the spike. The two studies that had the spike discussion, one of the studies showed, and I actually had linked those studies before. One study showed that the spike would circulate in the body. Of course, it will be maximal at the site of injection, then the local lymph nodes, and then the circulation. The local lymph nodes had the spikes for up to 2 months. The study showed the circulating spike in the blood for a few weeks, I believe, but local lymph nodes were expressing spike for 2 months. Lori says, what safety efficacy studies have been done on the new bivalent boosters? I am not sure if there were many done, but I did not do a lot of research on that either. So I may be wrong. Rich says, Dr. Bean Medical Lectures, dude, Daisy07 sent you a super chat with a question in your last live stream that was unanswered. Could you please pre-warn or turn off super chat if cues won't be answered? So super chat is not necessarily for the questions. I answer questions otherwise as well. And someone who had a question in the super chat, they can just ask it again. What happens is here, super chat stays for a few minutes and then disappears, and I cannot go and find it. So they can ask the question again as well. And if Desi is here, please ask me your question again and I'll answer it. Cynthia says, do you regret getting the vaccine given all your research findings? Why? So, within my family, my wife was vaccine injured. So, I regret that she got the Johnson and Johnson, and now Johnson and Johnson is stopped as well. I had Moderna 2 doses, and my son had Moderna. Both are adults; they're fine. One of them had Pfizer. So I was discussing with someone today. So to my this comment, there will be multiple answers. Some people are going to throw a fit and say, "You still don't get it. Do you not understand?" And some are going to say, um, "Good." But it's a very simple thing. Just like with the virus, who gets asymptomatic, who becomes mild or moderate or severe or die is not known. We know some factors, age being a factor, obesity being a factor, hypertension being a, so there is top 10 factors. But really who will end up in a bad state is still not known. We know that youngsters are less prone, but there are youngsters who are at risk as well. Same is the truth with vaccines as well. That vaccines are also, unfortunately, in some cases, causing severe illness. I think about it very much that it would have been me who got vaccine injured, like Sean is, or like Michelle is, or like Bree is. And I could have been bedridden right now and be totally in a bad state. So I got the vaccine and I was okay. So at least as far as it is me who's concerned, I'm not regretful about that. It is scary. Now, there are people who say to me that I push vaccines, and then there are people who say to me I'm anti vaxxer. So it's just a very weird thing. They're under the same one video. There will be people who are saying you are an anti vaxxer, and the same video under which there'll be people who are saying you are pushing the vaccine, you are some sort of a sheeple. So I don't think I can become correctly judged by folks. But I have never pushed vaccines, neither have I ever stopped from vaccines. So, what do you decide is your choice and your decision, your doctor, your family, your friends, you. It's not my job at all to push a vaccine or not to push a vaccine. However, I find it interesting for me to discuss the vaccines, how they're built, what are their mechanisms, what are their trials, and then what are their side effects. Someone said, why can't you discuss how the virus causes damage instead of talking about how vaccine causes damage? I have been discussing virus and the cytokine storms and the damage and the ACE1 and ACE2 mechanism differences my whole initial year. I think I'm one of the presenters who even discussed bradykinin storm or histamine influences of the virus. So the most thorough mechanisms for the COVID related damage are on this channel. So they don't go bother see if I've done that or not. And then they say, why are you talking about vaccine? I have done all vaccines trial results. I have covered many FDA debrief documents. I have covered many of the vaccine's benefits. And similarly, there are vaccine side effects. I'm a doctor who looks at something and its benefit and its negatives, and I teach as well. So I present those things too. And it make people become really surprised at this, that why am I not a group? And I'm not a group, it's medicine. So here are the benefits and here are the uh, problems. And then you decide how you want to go, or you and your doctor decide. It's not my job. Okay, so Dude This is here. Uh, there are pro vaxxers who use study after study to argue in favor of the COVID vaccine. How do we respond to those who argue that science undoubtedly supports the vaccine? Actually, even the infection in majority of the people does not do anything. But getting the infection has a risk in it, correct? Similarly, vaccine has a benefit and it has a risk in it. That risk, it is unfortunate and it is sad that we are deliberately, by we, the healthcare authorities, are, in my opinion, they are deliberate in that they're ignoring it. I think they ignore the vaccines side effects or vaccines injuries because they think if we talk about it, then people will become hesitant. In my opinion, when they don't talk about it, then more rumors appear, when then people become opportunistic and say stuff that is not even correct. So at least in here, neither is there any anti-vaccine propaganda, nor is there pro-vaccine propaganda. There is the uh, discussion of the mechanics, and those mechanics we keep seeing. That, for example, there is a study. Let me actually see if I can Google it. There was a study that said no traces of RNA in the breast milk, no traces of mRNA in human breast milk. So this is the one that just came out and I discussed, and we are in the same context. This is September 26, 2022, detection of messenger RNA COVID vaccine in human breast milk. But there were, I think this is the one. So this is routers, and I'm sure they would have linked somewhere the actual study. So there is a study as well. This was July 19, 2021. No trace of mRNA vaccine found in breast milk. Gene found that help identify COVID-19 early. So if you become, let's say, pro vaccine after reading this, and now you just want to stay stuck to this, then this kind of a study is going to throw you off, and you're going to start attacking the person or the authors or whatever. On the other hand, there are some who are going to just pick up this one and say, look, this proves that the vaccine mRNA are dangerous. And then there are other studies that show they may not be. So we have to be more, at least in the cool beans community here, I believe that we have to be more like medicine, where for every drug, there is a, let me actually open up a book and show you. Give me 1 second. So today I was reading about Naltrexone. This book's name is Goodman and Gilman, The Pharmacological Basis of Therapeutics. And if you see here, Naltrexone, they would talk about the proper, it's a pharmacology book. This is a god book of pharmacology. It's a good book. Naltrexone, what is that? How does it work? And then reduces craving and decreases blah. So these are the functions they're talking about. And then if you see here, the most common side effect of naltrexone is nausea. So we will not go to this book writers and say, when there is a possibility of naltrexone being useful for the opioid addictions or craving suppression, then why are you talking about the side effects? Well, that is what they have to do. The most common side effect of naltrexone is nausea, which subsides if the patient abstains from alcohol. There is some evidence of dysphoria associated with the administration of naltrexone, and it is contraindicated in patients with depressive disorders. So now who's not medical would say, do you not know that naltrexone can be really dangerous for somebody who has depressive disorder? Why are you talking about naltrexone being useful? Well, this is how medical sciences are. Here is a substance, here are the type and properties and benefits and problems. So doses of naltrexone exceeding 300 milligram can cause liver damage. The drug is contraindicated in patients with liver failure or acute hepatitis and should be used only after careful consideration in patients with active liver disease. Now, if we look at this and say, look, it causes liver damage, everybody should stop. That's also not correct. So I do medical discussions, which means that we discuss positives of a drug, properties of a drug, mechanisms of a drug, negatives of a drug, ways to correct the negative. For these drugs which cause toxicity, there are actually then the another section in the books to say if the toxicity occurs, then here is the antidote. So that's how medical science is. I am not here as a group. Okay, so let's see. So Texas says studies don't prove anything, they suggest problems and further research needed, kind of the way it works out there in the research land. One can spin it anyway. So, correct, there are some studies that prove things, and these are supposed to be large studies and all that. And then there are some studies, like tiny studies, that give hints to us as medical scientists, and somebody would pick it up and say, all right, I need to go work on it. So, I actually have never understood why such emotion in pro vaccine or anti vaccine, and why such intent to be one or the other. Okay, so let's continue. Rich Brown says, I remember someone asking you if you would have Dr. Jane Ruby on as a guest. Your reply was you would get your team to check her credentials. Did you ever do as promised? I think we may have done it. I usually give it to my team to discuss it, and I may have Googled her myself as well. I do not know. Did we invite her and she did not come in, or did we not invite her? For example, a few days ago, I had invited Dr. Malhotra and he just did not even respond. So everyone has a. Okay, so M. Gregory says, do other kinds of vaccines leave traces in breast milk? I don't know. I cannot say that unless I read a study or research. However, a few days ago, I was um, maybe I have it still open here. So if I go here to this one, um, drugs. Okay, so look at this. So this is a this link to this particular paper is in my last discussion. So look, they're talking about the various barriers, and then they say modifications of the drug include lipidization of the molecule, enclosure into liposomes, and coupling to substances that are actively taken up by the cell. So this is a way to bring drugs to cross the barriers. And there are legitimate reasons for therapeutics to make therapeutics that would cross the barriers. For example, if there is a breast cancer patient and the drug molecule cannot cross the blood milk barrier and go to all tissue cells, then they would put it in a lipid and that would cause it to cross. Selfala says, doesn't the benefit of vaccine wear off quickly, and can't early treatment mitigate risk of virus? So Selfala, yes, vaccines effect. We have discussed that for example, UK said that the second doses effect wanes within 2-3 months. Now there is a research that third doses effect within 4-5 months. So yes, normally vaccines do not wane that fast unless there is a fight with the virus like coronavirus or flu virus. Even flu virus has a yearly vaccine. So yes, they wane, and that is why you have, let's say, Pfizer's own CEO with what, 4 doses and still second time infected. So these are not things that are hideable, and these are not things, just like we should not ignore the benefit or the harm. Similarly, we should also not ignore the waning and all that. So now the second part of your question, I cannot answer that here, not because I don't want to answer it. Lyme ADE says, did scientists ever find out how long the mRNA continues to instruct cells to make the spikes? So I did a discussion about that, Lyme ADE, where I think the title was How Long Messenger RNA Stays in a Cell. So messenger RNA usually becomes, so once the virus or the vaccine enters and they are uncoated, meaning their packaging is removed, then the messenger RNA starts getting engaged with the ribosomes within 7-8 hours, and the first appearance of the proteins start appearing within 8 hours. Then a non-synthetic RNA, meaning naturally produced RNA, can be broken down within 2 to 3 days. RNA actually takes many days to produce the proteins. The ribosomes are tiny little microscopic machines that just keep looking and making translations or making proteins. They're not rapidly firing machines that you give an RNA and here is a protein. They take days to keep making proteins. And then RNA gets stuck with the endosomes and they are, or RNases, and they are removed, they're degraded. Now, the RNA that are in the vaccines, I suspect that they are modified so that they are stable for longer period of time. How long? I do not know. RNA present here in the lymph nodes, excuse me, were here for 2 months, I believe, in the local lymph nodes. Limate says, thank you for answering my question. You're very welcome. Joseph says, wouldn't it be less political and more scientific to just have people self regulate based on their personal ideology? Let all those against experimental vaccine live in an area in those. So, sure. I think that, and I have been saying this from the very beginning, if there was better communication, if think about it, if FDA or CDC came out and said, we believe that vitamin D's are very important, sunlight is very important, we believe a healthy diet is very important, we believe less carbohydrates during this time, or keeping your weight in control or keeping your diabetes in control are very important aspects, and we're going to have these stalls on the roads and you can check your vitamin D right on the spot and know if you need to improve your vitamin D or not. Imagine if they were caring that much and they had nothing else to do for last 2.5 years than to protect us from these things. And if they had done that, I believe many people would have listened to their vaccine messaging more easily as well. They didn't do it. For everything they mocked and they threatened and they sent messages to the organizations, they actually fought. So look, we, the average human beings, we may become groups like children, but the organizations that are there to protect us, they have to take a more graceful route of taking care of us regardless of how we are behaving. But they actually went on a fighting path. They confronted, they mocked, they became groups, they took media with them, they partnered with organizations to just confront their own citizens. And I think that created a lot of, then the mandates, that created a lot of anger, anxiety, and dislike. And so the rebellion occurred, if we can, or resistance occurred. So it is not that people are just bad, that they want to have resistance or they don't understand, then trying to say that they are not educated or they are this way or they are that way. I think human beings, for their own self, are very careful and they want to protect themselves. So, considering someone a fool because they want to have a vaccine or a fool because they don't want to have a vaccine is actually an incorrect way of looking at it. Someone who is hesitant to the vaccine would have some reason somewhere. They would have seen somebody getting injured, they would have gotten that injury themselves, or they would have heard something that they believed. Similarly, people with the vaccine. So it's just the leadership was missing, and that is what caused a lot of rift. David says, has anyone noticed pupil dilation after vaccination? That's a very interesting question. I have not, and I've not heard of it. John says, from your previous talk and from a mechanism perspective, should there be a reason to be concerned? Is the answer we don't know yet because the data is not available? Okay, so now this is just a mechanistic answer, mechanism based answer, not a study based answer. My message cannot be tagged on to the previous study's authors. This is me thinking from medical knowledge that I have and the mechanisms knowledge that I have. And that means I could be recalling wrong. That means I could be interpreting wrong. I could be incorrect. But from your previous talk and from the mechanism, should there be a reason to be concerned? So, if there is mRNA in the milk, for example, and that goes to a baby, I don't see the problem baby will have with that. What will happen? The mRNA would end up in the baby's cell. That will make a few proteins over there. Babies get infected as well. Mothers can be infected. The people around them can be infected. We have so many kind of things entering our mouth. We eat all kind. Babies sometimes even touch poop and start tasting it. So which is much more amount of bacteria and viruses, at least bacteria, than what this little mRNA can do. So then if this mRNA is really not viable, then it's nothing. It's just a piece of little nuclear material, microscopic, which would be gone away. The question more interesting is not on the baby side for me. Again, pediatrics association said, hey, be careful with the baby. The author said we should be a little careful for 2 days at least. For me, the interesting part, which I had not known before or had not read about before, was the presence of LNP with mRNA circulating. And many people said, well, why did you not know there were spike proteins circulating for months? Spike protein circulation is something else. mRNA with lipid nanoparticle circulating is interesting. That will mean there are other areas of the body where it will go as well. It will produce spikes in other places too. Now, you could look at that and say it's a good thing. More of the body is exposed to these spike proteins, more of the body's tissues will become immunized easily. Or it could be a bad thing if there is local inflammations that might cause local tissue damage. And we know some people get injured and some people don't, with the virus and with the vaccine. And it is such an endless discussion. Somebody said to me was, well, you have to count the numbers. So I have been presenting these data for a long time. It is so difficult that in every single study to pack it with all the numbers for context, or to say I have taught this as well. I sometimes think about it this way, to then say I should just not teach, because this is medicine we are discussing, not fight we are discussing, or not. I'm not trying to strengthen one group over the other. Okay, so Paul Menton, thank you very much for your super chat. Joseph Kuhn, I am biased towards freedom, and that's why I enjoy your videos. Thank you. You do not advocate for any particular decision, which is the whole point of sovereignty. It's a shame this has become politicized. I appreciate your neutrality. Thank you very much. I have actually paid a very heavy price for this. Uh, I can say very heavy price because nowadays I have actually reached a point of figuring out the complaints and their outcomes and everything. There has been a lot of damage done, financial damage for sure, by folks who have been just fighting me because I talk about these things. I think still, when they caused all that damage, they could not stop me from discussing things. Oh well, but thank you. Absolutely. So lipids will not last long in the digestion process. It breaks down lipids from our mouth. If I speak from, excuse me, our mouth has lipases, amylases, many enzyme right in the mouth. The food's digestion and breakdown process starts from here, and it just continues. Then we expose the food to acids and we just grind it, and then we expose it. It's not that the mRNA would just come in here and willy-nilly just enter the cells as if it wants. There is a barrier here, there are enzymes there are antibodies there are immune cells there. So uh, I still believe that if I had become part of a group, pro vaccine or anti vaccine, I would have had more followership and I would have more, um, bigger channel. But I have not done that because that's not medicine. When I see doctors who are pro vaccine and all the time beating up any contrary studies, they are also incorrect. And similarly, when I see someone who is not pro vaccine and continues to beat up any vaccine related benefit, that they're also not correct. John says, thank you for answering my question. Wasn't a problem that Pfizer and Moderna told us that it would not cross Yes. So these are the problems. The problems are, for example, not testing it on women, pregnant women, or lactating women, then saying it is okay, let's give it to them. These, or similarly, some other groups as well, or to not, or to just declare. I think the signals for example, cardiac problems were present in the trial data as well, but they were simply said that hey, this was balanced. That is incorrect. And I feel that the responsibility sits with FDA and CDC for being lazy, to not, they could not even move their lips to ask the companies to behave, and that then the whole thing becomes a mess. So yes. Okay to let go says, it figured in my self risk assessment that Mrs. Sayed was vaccine injured. Still, because you interviewed Dr. Heather and because of Paul and Pierre, there was an alternative. I hope wife as well. So yes, she has fully recovered, and LDN was the biggest help for her. Selfla says it is hard to trust the CDC, who advised everyone who had already gotten the infection to get vaccinated. So CDC has made a lot of mistakes. They would probably like to claim that they have made no mistakes, but they have really dropped the ball. Many messages have not been the best and the most accurate. Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, to let go. Um, for her, it was a year long process of taking LDNs, going through the process of Bell's palsy and twitches in the eyes and twitches here, burning, paresthesias, drooping. There was a lot she went through. But she is, for example, in last 2 months, she has not taken LDN. The eye twitch, she said about 2 weeks ago that I had an eye twitch for 5 minutes. But there are some lifestyle changes. Now she's back to her normal exercises and walks and activities, but she cannot eat leftover food. As soon as she eats something that is in the fridge for 2 days or 3 days, she's gonna get a relapse. So she cannot eat leftover food. She cannot eat certain food types. She cannot eat carbohydrates that much. Um, but generally, she's back to normal. Thank you. Sunset Way says, "What is LDN?" Low dose naltrexone. It's a drug. Populares says, given the question arising from vaccination directly entering blood vessels in the arm and circulating mRNA, would vaccination in the posterior have been less likely for that to happen? That's an interesting question, that if it was in the gluteal region, what would be the outcome of that? Interesting. Maybe it would have been better option. Separated Self says, thank you, doctor, for your honesty and frankness. You're very welcome. It comes at a when I was in the beginning of my lectures, pandemic related lectures, I didn't think this would happen, but it comes at a cost. Even now, I can tell you there'll be people who'll be going to YouTube and saying, hey, this is misinformation, or this is bad. And then YouTube will be reviewing. And a few days ago, when I was doing talks, they took one video down saying, we don't think it is good. And then I had to work with them. So for I have learned it is impossible that even when you would serve, that people would agree with that. So I just have to live with it and suffer it and face it while trying to present what I think is interesting. I cannot present every single study. I just don't have time. I can do one study a day. And even that means I give majority of my day for this. And believe me, um, I'm very grateful to people's support, but nowadays there is not much support either. And I work through this because these pieces of information are interesting. Yeah, so for my wife, LDN started becoming effective after 6 weeks, and she was taking 2 milligram per day per night. Jean says, mechanistically, do you think there is role LDN can play during an active infection to lessen the chance of cytokine storm? That's a very interesting question. So yes, not the cytokine storm, but the lessen the chances of neuroinflammatory type behaviors. Yes, I think so. So John says, how did your locals test stream go today? So you saw I was trying to test it, it didn't work. So then I sent their support a message. So what is not working is my camera, just like right now on StreamYard, it is working and I can do this and I can share screen. locals video player can see my camera but cannot switch to it, and it just keeps saying error, your camera is in use. So whatever I do, it sees it. It can actually show a tiny thumbnail of the picture, the stream, but it doesn't switch to it. So in my opinion, that's a defect in their code. So I sent a request to their support uh, team. I don't think they're a very large team, so I don't think they have sufficient resources. So we'll see. I sent it out. Don says, what are your thoughts on researchers use GMO mosquitoes to vaccinate humans in funded malaria study? GMO, very interesting. So they have created mosquitoes that have the vaccine. That's very interesting. Oh, that will be so much fun. So you don't need to have a. I would love to see those mosquitoes. So it is scary as well that what else would they do, but it's interesting. What do you think of the mass formation psychosis, that theory of how we overreacted to COVID? So I think there is really no good answer. We will keep talking about this for decades now. How did we react? What did authorities do? What did people do? How did we get divided? How do we attack each other? How did our leaders do? How did our healthcare leaders do? What did the therapies do? How did the companies took advantage of the situation? How people jumped in to help each other? There's going to be a lot, but because um, we can't roll back the time and say, okay, do it the other way and see what happens. Everything is a speculation. Uh, I just think that we left the books alone and tried to play with try to be reactive. Books had a lot of knowledge, medical books, to guide us, but I don't think these were consulted. This is a very interesting question. David says, are metals present in secretions after vaccination? They found mRNA, but not the metals. I don't think that metal can even cross these barriers, if there is any metals. John says, we need measles mosquitoes. They can spread measles wax all day long. Yes, little tiny carriers. That will be so fun to see such mosquitoes. And then if accidentally you squash a mosquito, then say, oh man, this was the vaccine mosquito. Maybe they would change genetically to change their color so you can identify this a vaccine mosquito. Um, Rich Brown says, your name is bright red. Okay. My name? So why are you ignoring just my question? Oh, no, sorry, I'm not. And look at the bullying towards me now by Joseph Kuhn and Texas Mac. You're going to stop. What happened, Rich? Let's not fight. No, I'm not. I'm not. So what happens is here the questions or the comments. I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 comments at one time. And so they just keep scrolling. So David says, look at it now. Okay, what happened? Who hurt you, David? Okay, so you are welcome. I hope that your messaging is correct. Sometimes um, moderators have to figure out as well if there is some spam or there is a continuous effort to derail the discussion. But generally, everyone is welcome. We love everyone here. Um, The only time when I become upset is when someone more than me starts insulting and attacking others. So that is what I see, and I actually block such folks myself. I go through, I don't respond to the messages because then those becomes debate. But if I see people just continuously attacking others, I block them. I don't need more fight in here. Imagine the amount of work I do, 6 7 hours a day I spend to present these things. These are not just, oh well, kind of things. These are planned, prepared. If you look at my screen even now, this one and this one and this one and this, and I had closed some of them. And usually, in addition to all of this, I actually draw as well. So after all of this work, I would not want anyone who wants to learn this to not be here. But at the same time, when people just, I just don't like us fighting. That doesn't mean that we cannot disagree with each other or we cannot be upset with each other. We can be, but still I would like us to use this as a learning opportunity. Romnick says I miss the art. So, so today there were just so many tissues, and drawing every barrier is a very difficult thing. It's a artwork to do for hours. So I was a little lazy today. Father says, Dr. Bean, any update, safety info about Novavax? Haven't heard more, but that also may be because I haven't looked into this more. So I would. Separated self says, I miss your doodles. Thank you. I have been making doodles, just not today. Lynette says, I, for one, appreciate your videos and have watched quite a few of them. Thank you very much. And you are welcome. So Selfla says, is it the anti-antibodies? So anti-idiotypical antibodies. It is possible. It is vaccine mimicry, tissue mimicry, or antigen mimicry, or antibodies or anti-idiotypical antibodies. The both are possible. In addition to that, there can be inflammatory mediators that can do this as well. So multiple immune mechanisms can cause it. At the end of the day, we can call them all autoimmune. Okay. This is very interesting. Kathina says, you're quite popular in the Norwegian medical community, Dr. Bean. Thank you very much. I still remember from Sweden or Finland, someone had a rock. So I think they went out for a walk and they picked up a rock and painted it and wrote Dr. Bean on it and made a heart and left it back in that place. So somewhere in the world there is a rock with love Dr. Bean on it, which is on on the roadside somewhere. You too, Fu says, yeah, Dr. Bean, thank you for reviewing the research. Your videos matter. You're very welcome. So Terry says the LNP spoken about tonight, entering the barriers. Is it the LNP from the vaccine? So yes, that is the LNP or any lipidified drug, but yes. However, today's discussion was talk about the barriers, all barriers, and not the study. That study only talked about blood milk barrier. And I clarified that a few times. I'm not fond of taking a study and kind of spin that to say the study said this. Study said what it said, and then we talked more mechanisms. Texas, what happened? Texas as a moderator, this is a difficult job. Don, I need to start demanding rules of participating from all the live streams I participate in. Feel cheated. Sorry about that. Okay, so okay, to let go says, "Oh, Rock, great idea. Let's do it all. I'll do it in some lovely forest bathing shrub of thrilling St. Johnsbury." Yes, so I still have that picture. I'll find it. It was so fun that she actually sent me the picture of the rock. Rich, Rich, what happened? Rich says, "Stop ignoring my questions regarding the bullying on your channel. Use your fingers to scroll up now and block the bully Joseph Kuhn. As you can Texas Meg think it's funny. Do you?" So no, I have not. I don't find bullying to be uh, correct, but at the same time, I do not know what is going on, and I'm not going to block anyone until I see the comments. So, Ace Acer and says, "Are you planning to make a video in Hosta too? Hosta too? What is that? Hosta? I have no idea. Tell me a little more." LK says, "How did you become such a talented artist? Did your parents or family create art? I love your character so much." So I had mentioned this once in the past that uh, my parents. I come from a broken family, so they had separated, and so my uncle raised me. And the uncle who raised me, he used to draw this thing for me all the time. He would do this. Let's see if I can draw it. He would do this and then this, and then what he would do is he'll do these little lines. And as soon as he would make these little lines like this river would all of a sudden come to life for me, because it would look all 3D. And this is all he used to make. um, and then he'll make some water waves like this. And so this is what really made me so interested in doing art. But if you look at my lectures in the beginning of the pandemic, I would actually request you to go watch lectures in the 2020 time frame. And these lectures have all doodles and no good colors and everything. But I just wanted to do a good job at presenting. So what I did was, let me show you what I did. All of the books here, these and these and these, all of these books are art books, other than the books on my Kindle. And so I just started drawing, and I wanted to draw better because I draw for 5 6 hours every day for you all. So I thought, why not I do it better? I learn. So that's how I became a little better artist. So now I would actually request everyone to keep an eye on the this video and the video before and the comments, and just see how much of the unhappy folks there are. But my intent is not to do that. Fauzi Sultan says, "What helps with people who can't sleep following jab?" So I, it is very difficult to not be able to sleep well for a few days. It happens even after COVID. And I have seen melatonin has been very useful for me. And then, as much as I don't like to take dinner, but having some food in the evening also helps go to sleep. And then keeping your feet a little on the cold helps as well. So you have to, and for me, rain, I put the rain sound and I sleep with that. So there are certain things that can help, but it is difficult, I know. Selfless says discovery in science requires a genuine search for the truth, not confirmation. That's the problem, yes. Because many folks actually just want to confirm one way or the other. And then I actually was seeing, after today's earlier talk, my, for example, since the last talk, the subscriptions are actually going down instead of going up because people are upset. So after this talk, there will be that as well. So I could have escaped all of that by just becoming a group and say I'm a pro-vaxxer and just be that, or I'm an anti-vaxxer and be that. But that's not science, so that's not medicine. So with this, okay, so Janet says earlier comment, Costa 2 virus. Scientists find a new virus in Russia bats which can infect humans. Ouch. Okay, I will check it out. Yes, there are a lot of happy. Actually, more than 98% are happy people. The ones who are unhappy or want to, to say, bro, fight me, they are less, but still they are real angry. So let's. Skyfrog says I need my melatonin today, and John says I posted a study 2 months after birth. Okay, one more question and then we stop. Are you meaning chat box comments? Because my YouTube screen is not offering a place to comment. Yes. So what happens is, for these live, the comments are here as in the live, but afterwards these live comments will be processed and they will disappear for about an hour and then they'll reappear. And then normal comments will be allowed as well. And in those normal comments, if you would see, there will be people fighting with each other, especially with the kind of topic I did today. They'll be upset with each other. um, they will there'll be all kind of things you can actually see. So, and I'm already seeing, so there are subscriptions, people unsubscribing as well. So I pay a price for being able to talk medicine, but that's just how it is. Bernard Burgess, thank you very much for becoming a member. Thank you, welcome. Sasha says we're Luffy goes out about 11 or 12 and he'll come back. I think it is already night. I have to go and get him in. I didn't remember today. So then he comes back at night. McBain says, what are your thoughts on Dr. Malone's comments? So many of his comments are not on the correct mechanisms. I think he was a great doctor and he did this participation in producing mRNA like therapies or mRNA therapies. He had a role in it. I just am not able to um, connect the dots with his latest comments. Isran says Dr. Bean lectures closer to is a newly COVID-like virus found in Russia. Okay, I'll check it out. Joseph, this is a very interesting way to see. People unsubbing is a cost to those people, not you. People who can't think for themselves are only interested in being right and searching for understanding. That's true. So, so Skyfrog, how are you doing? How is Florida? You saying staying safe? Prince says, any update on the management of anosmia, neurosymptoms, or those suffering since? So, actually, we should do a Zoom call. There are some things I cannot talk here more freely, but we should discuss it because anosmia, there are many possible therapies. So the question is, what are the therapies used before we think about more? So maybe we should do a anosmia potential therapeutics lecture, but on Zoom. Please back up all your content on Rumble. War on misinformation is the highest in ever been. Love from Thailand. Thank you very much. Um, so you're saying that this is misinformation or disinformation, but I have Odyssey, I think, taking these videos, and I will check Rumble as well. I saw that Rumble was not syncing anymore, so I'll try it. Sorry. So yes, Prince, let's do a Zoom. Yes. So with this, how about we break for today, and then we meet each other tomorrow. And apologies to moderators if they had especially hard time. Um, there are some topics that still need to be done regardless of the of the outcome. And sorry, you get some heat, I get it as well. I get it the whole day, night, next day, complaints, people calling. There's a lot that happens, but I think what we should talk about is what we believe in and go from there. So with this, somebody said 599k over here. So yeah, we are at 599. Mick Jagger says, stay strong. So my strength comes from some from my own work, from my own resolve, because I was not going to teach for 2.5 years, COVID. But when COVID started, I talked with my um, business partner, and I said, we always, as part of drbeen.com, we always say that we should teach so that the medical students and nursing students and professionals are able to save more lives and protect them. And here is a situation where everyone is needed to do whatever they can to protect people. So we need to do this. And he said, yes, I totally agree. And so I gave this time. So I think I've done my job almost. We can stop now at some point, but that was the background. So we came in with a purpose. And because of that purpose, I could stay. I have enormous financial damages and unnecessary complaints and lawyerings and having we've won all of that. The financial damages are in terms of lawyer fees and lost business during the time of audits or fights and stuff, but we were right in all cases. And then the second is from the cool bean community itself. I always get support and I always get more love. I always think that more than 99% of the cool beans, they love the work, they respect the work, they use the work for their own protection or for their own education and to discuss with their doctors. And then there are some who are not happy as well. So, with this, thank you very much. Thank you for your love and care and support and for being here. There are links in the description if you would like to support this work. You can buy Dr. Bean's plan, or you can become a member of Substack, or you can use PayPal or buy me a coffee, or do nothing and just like and subscribe as well. Thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow.